Radha Radhe. Today is Saturday, 21st March 2026, and during this auspicious season of Chaitra Navratri, welcome to this recap video of our Bhagavad Gita study session. Along with me, here is Mummy.
Radhe Radhe.
So let's take a look as the slides come up. We continue in the early steps of chapter 13. After the usual recap quiz, which was for last week's chapter 13, verse 5, we covered chapter 13, verses 6 and 7. As always, if you take a look at the description for the video, you can get a link to the community portal where these slides are available, including the quiz questions, etc., and much more for your reference. So with that, let us take a look at chapter 13, verse 6.
महाभूतन्य अहंकारो बुद्धिरव्यक्तम् एव च इन्द्रियाणि दशैकं च पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः.
Chapter 13, verse 6 has the straightforward catchphrase, composite field, because Sri Krishna here outlines explicitly the elements that make up the field. So the composition of what that field, remember the field of activities, is. We talked at length in the session about the 24 elements making up that field, given by Sri Krishna as a different series, such as five great elements, then the ego, then the intellect, then Prakriti, and so on. So you can count them out. 5, 1, 1, 1, 11. He uses the Shaikam, which is for the five knowledge senses, five working senses, and the mind. And finally, the five objects of the senses. So that's one listing. Swamiji does the grouping in a way that is also easy for us to hopefully remember. He does it as 5, 5, 5, 5, and then ones. So in the commentary, you see we have the five gross elements seen long back in chapter 2 and beyond: earth, water, fire, air, and space. Then we have the five senses, panch tanmatras, which are the senses that we understand from as early as when we were kids. The ones that only begin with T or S: taste, touch, smell, sight, sound. Then we have the five working senses: voice, hands, legs, genitals, anus, working processes. And then, of course, the knowledge senses through which we, of course, perceive everything in the world: ears, eyes, tongue, skin, and nose. So four sets of five, that's already 20. Then the individuals, the singleton mind, intellect, ego. So that's three more. And finally, avyaktam, prakriti, the unmanifested primordial energy by which all of creation takes place. So that is the 24th one. All these are the constituents of this field of activities. And remember, the field of activities, as we learned in earlier verses of chapter 13, that is, of course, the body. Swamiji then poses the question and answers as to why the five sense objects have been included, whereas they tend to exist outside the body, perhaps. He reminds us, and we recognize this perhaps, whether it's from Patanjali Yoga Sutras or I would say from our own day-to-day experiences, that we do experience all this in our subtle form as well. When we are at rest, when we are sleeping, when we are dreaming, we do think about food, flowers, travel, etc. Five sense objects come about there as well. So all these are part of our constitution, the body as the field of activities. Now, Swamiji mentions that in certain commentaries, they instead present five prans, the five life airs, instead of the five sense objects. Mummy had walked us through those. They are also listed here in the koshas context. So pran, apan, vyan, udan, and saman. Mummy will probably talk more about it, but that is not a philosophical difference. It's just a categorization or classification difference Swamiji mentions. And he says these same 24 can also be outlined as the set of the five koshas. So these are the five sheets we talked about in the session. You may have seen them elsewhere as well. So there is the one to do with essentially material, tangible nature, food as well, gross sheet. So earth, water, fire, air, and space, Anmaya Kosh. Then there's a Pranamaya Kosh, we just alluded to that, the five life airs. Manomaya Kosh, man, so to do with the mind. That is to do with the working processes, so the five working senses and the mind. Vijnanmaya Kosh, Vijnan, intellect, discerning, discrimination. So bring in the intellect. And how does the intellect get support with perception? It's the five knowledge senses: ears, eyes, tongue, skin, and nose. And finally, getting towards the innermost core, the one that we are really trying to connect with and beyond, Anandmaya Kosh, Anand, bliss, way beyond even happiness. But again, this is our body and the field of activities. We're not yet progressing to the soul or the supreme soul. So this is, as Swamiji says, it's the ego which makes us identify with the tiny bliss of the body, mind, intellect mechanism. That's chapter 13, verse 6. I'll take us through some imagery for it as well. So we presented in class two images created through prompts, of course, I provided to the AI system. We have these in the slide so you can see them there as well. This is the sort of five concentric koshas, one representation of what we have learned. So from outer to inner, Annamaya Kosh, all the way down to the Anandamaya Kosh. So you can take a look at that. Second is that there is this prompt I gave, which is based on Swamiji's wording itself in this chapter 13, verse 6. So you find a few more details about what are those different elements, such as the five gross elements on the left, the intellect on the right, etc. The one thing that we did say in class is that there is an overlap between the koshas to some extent. So this image here represents that a little bit more precisely. We'd also given the example of Russian dolls that some of you are familiar with, or what you see at Golu Puja many times. Again, those are one inside the other, and so on. That's again a fairly close analogy for the koshas, though there is no overlap in those dolls if you're familiar with them. All this, again, as I said, is in the slides. And we also went at length about the flyer. Again, homework exercise for all of you to please go back and you can cross-check with just a little bit more to do. How can you complete the composition? The composition here is trying to represent in a fun way the field of activities. The field trip here, let's go to the amusement park. And we have here on the top right, if you see near JKYog, we have earth, we have water, we have fire, we have air, and we have an empty cable car in this Ferris wheel. That's space. The AI system, of course, also went and designed some space type things, but that is, a different interpretation. I'd also told the system, let's talk about all the other different entities. So we have, if you look here at the roller coaster, we have the ears, the eyes, tongue, nose, and skin. Then the sense objects, we have paintings we appreciate, we have guitar, music we listen to, we have pets that you touch, you play with, fruits and vegetables that you eat, and of course, all around we have flowers that again you admire. So those are there. Harder to see, but if you zoom in on the Ferris wheel, you'll see, in fact, I can zoom in actually. It's meant to represent the mind here, the intellect here. You see that scroll the person's reading, and the somewhat vain person here, the ego. So that's also there. So again, do all that. And then there is this Prakriti is represented here with that log water roller coaster. So that's just one interpretation of it. Truly, what is missing, if you think about it, with just a little bit more to do, who does, who works, it is the working senses. So you'll take a look and see there's no specific standalone pair of hands or legs. There's no voice. There's obviously no genitals, anus. So the working senses are the ones that will help complete this composition here for all 24 elements of the field. In a humorous way, this was a field trip. The five working senses were at work. They did not show up to the field trip, but they make up the field of activities. With that, Mommy is going to take us through the recitation of chapter 13, verse 7.
इच्छाद्वेषसुखं दुःखं सङ्घातश्चेतनाधृतिः एतत् क्षेत्रं समासेन सविकारम् उदाहृतम्.
Chapter 13, verse 7 has the interesting catchphrase with the hyphen purposely here as modi field. So the first part is modify for modifications of the field. So modi field. So keep that in mind because chapter 13, verse 7, Sri Krishna talks about 7, 6 plus 1, that are the modifications of the field itself. And coincidentally happens to be chapter 13, verse 7. Just notice that. But indeed, the body itself is a modification of the field because of its 6 transformations. And then there are, in some pairs, there's desire and aversion, there's happiness and misery. And then, of course, we also have consciousness and the will. So, one homework question, don't forget we mentioned in class these 6 transformations of the body, asti, jayate, etc., are mentioned first by Swamiji somewhere in chapter 2. Go ahead and in the comments to the video, you can post your response as to which verse that comes from. Again, somewhere in chapter 2. So 6 transformations, the body itself is a modification of that field of activities. We do see consciousness. We talked about it just a couple of weeks ago with the chapter 2 example of the flowers and their fragrance. And here Swamiji talks about an iron rod and heat. Again, as Mummy stressed in class, consciousness is what helps that body actually get life so that it can then perform everything and experience everything that's needed as we seek, of course, to proceed towards God. How do we proceed towards God? That is to do with the will, the determination of our composition, our constituent elements to focus us in a particular direction, single pointed aim. And that's where, as we said in class, connect this now to the 6 aspects of surrender. We'll see them at length later in chapter 18. But one of them is align your will to the will of God. So aligning our will, our determination and focus to, of course, the will of God. No doubt we've seen as early as chapter 2, desire and aversion. They go hand in hand. Swamiji has said they are 2 sides of the same coin. You either get attached too much to someone, like to someone too much, or you hate, dislike too much. Both ways, there is a sense of attachment, positive or negative, and they're 2 sides of the same coin. Either way, if we can get away from them, have a more neutral stance, we get towards that concept of sthita prajna, and that is what is helping us again attain God. And then happiness and misery, again, opposites. These are experiences, these are feelings, again, we have materially because we connect outcomes to circumstances. Some favorable circumstance happens, it's agreeable to us or our desire, we feel happy. Instead, something happens against what we desired, that gives pain, that is misery. All of that actually is in the mind. In fact, I'll try later in the video to talk a little bit about how this mind again goes back to the koshas. We'll get to that momentarily. But again, these, as I said, 6 plus 1, the body plus the other 6 Sri Krishna mentions, are the modifications of the field of activities. Mummy, it's over to you to add more content and take us through the dictionary as well.
Thank you, Gagan. Explained very well. So let's look at the word Indriye Gocharaha from verse 6. Indriye Gocharaha means the 5 objects of the senses, which are very, very important. What are the 5 objects? These are taste, touch, smell, sight, and sound. So what happens that our mind keeps on contemplating on them, and they reside in a subtle form in our mind. So God has given us this body, which is the field of activities, and He has given us the working senses and the knowledge senses. Now, through them, we have to think very carefully how we make use of them to get the desired results that Sri Krishna wants us. And he is going to explain in the coming verses how to make the right use of these senses. From verse number 7, we will look at the word savikaram. Savikaram means with modifications. So, what is happening in this body? There are modifications happening. So there are these different 6 transformations which the body undergoes till death. So one is asti. Asti means coming into existence. Jayate means birth. Vardhate means growth. Viparinamate means reproduction. Apakshyate, withering with age. And vinashyati, death. So what happens as we grow with age? there are changes in our body. So Anmay Kosh, the outer kosh, that keeps on looking different and different, and we start withering with age. And same, there are modifications in our mind also, in our thinking also, in our intellect also. If we start going towards scriptures and gain wisdom, then we try understand the life more and how we should be using all the components given by uh, God in this body, how to make use of them in the correct, right way. Huh? So, mm, what happens that we are all the time desiring. Desiring, uh, that is human nature. And human nature is that it is always looking for happiness, because our soul is the fragment of the Supreme Soul, and it is looking for happiness. But with our little body, mind, intellect mechanism, we attach that happiness to the material world. That is where we keep going wrong. And that is why the soul is, why it happens, because the soul is covered with ego. It does not have the right direction. So that is why our Rath keeps on going in the wrong direction, being pulled by different senses. So we have to learn from Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna, that how to keep our senses under control, because they are the ones which are feeling, seeing, smelling, experiencing, observing, absorbing all the different things. So that experience then makes our life different. Mind is all the time contemplating on different things. But if we take care of everything, then it gives us better physical health, mental clarity, and of course, the right happiness. Body gets the consciousness through the soul. Soul is the life force. There is life force in the soul. Okay, so then it imparts to the whole body so that it feels like the natural feeling, whereby it can feel, it can experience everything. And aversion and happiness, they are all dependent upon different experiences. If things are favorable, agreeable, we are happy. If not, then we feel misery and pain. So another thing is, we have these in the components, 24 components, there is this life airs. Okay, pran is the vital energy, that we have in our body. How do we get that vital energy? We get through breathing and, of course, eating, because our body needs both oxygen and nutrients from food. So there are five um, pran vayus. Okay, there are five vayus basically. So pran vayu is basically, it is situated in the heart region, and it means inward flow. It is inhalation, intake of air and food, and also sensory inputs through our ears, nose, smell, all that. Okay, so that is the pran vayu which we take inside. Then there is apan vayu. Apan vayu is in the pelvis, and it means elimination, downloading, or outward. So exhalation or elimination of waste. And then there is Saman Vayu. Saman Vayu is in the navel, and it is with digestion, balancing. Okay, it is the flow process of everything we consume. Everything we consume means all the air, all the food, what all we see, what all we hear, all we experience, what all we consume. So, and then there is Udan Vayu. Udan Vayu is the upward flow, something which is active in the throat. So it controls speech, expression, growth, and memory. So it is in throat and head. And then Udan Vayu. Udan Vayu is it is the circulation, it is in the whole body, it is all pervasive. It is the circulative flow. So it flows throughout the body, distributing nutrients and energy from food, breath to every cell. So it supports the nervous and circulatory system. So see how complex this whole body, mind, intellect mechanism that God has made, given us everything. But we have to understand that this is the field of activities, and through this, we are going to have different experiences. So, if we put them in the right direction, if we awaken our soul, then our rath will go in the right direction, and we will have lots of happiness and bliss. Right now, it is only the tiny bliss that which we are getting from this material world, and we think, oh, I felt happy when I ate that, I felt happy when I went there, I saw this, or I have this person who gives me happiness. No, when our soul is awakened and our rath is going in the right direction with spiritual wisdom, that is when we will feel the real Anand, and which we are going to understand in the coming verses. Over to you, Gagan.
Yeah, thank you, Mummy. The viewers will be happy. You saved them some homework because otherwise Pranapan Vyan Udan Saman was going to be a homework question I was thinking where they can explain that. So they will love it. They'll be very happy. Of course, you all can remember, I think Mummy has mentioned, she said in class as well, Panditji, you'll always see them doing that when they're offering, right, bhog to the Lord. So keep that in mind there. Um, the other thing I wanted to just add is for everyone's knowledge purpose. When we talk about koshas, it's again often to do with, health and disease also. So two things. One is in the Yog Vashisht, Lord Ram and Maharishi Vashisht have a dialogue, and Lord Ram had seen suffering and illness or disease in Ayodhya, for instance, and he asked, why does this happen? And it was explained there with the concepts of the koshas, at least with the first three koshas, that manas rog. These are things to do with the mind. If you take care of the mind, you get to the root cause, and then you can help solve the other issues. So if the mind is taken care of, so you have purity of thought, and of course much more sadhana, devotion, etc., then it impacts your life airs. So your pranamaya kosh gets the vital energy and strength that's required, which then takes care of that outer annamaya kosh, the gross body elements itself. And so getting to mind, solving the mind's problems helps with reducing or eliminating, of course, disease and illness. Similarly, once Swamiji was asked a question about the benefits of meditation over pranayam, over the yoga asanas, the physical asanas themselves. And this is again in the scriptures, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, I believe, 20 times more impactful than the asanas is pranayam. And 20 times as beneficial as that is meditation. Because again, meditation is going to the mind. You take care of the mind, better vital energy, better pranayam, and then that itself takes care of the vital energy for the physical body, the gross body, the diseases and ill health that come from that. So something great for all of us to recognize from a kosha standpoint, health-wise also. With that, we get towards the end of this recap video, unless Mommy, you want to add anything else?
No, all done, because of course taking care of the mind should be calm, because these senses, they keep working even at night when we are sleeping. Even in dream, our senses go somewhere, they say something, they feel something, they see something. So when we sleep after doing meditation, then the mind is calm, and of course, it gives you more vital energy, and when you wake up, you are more energetic. So, it gives us good physical health and mental clarity. And
Yes.
wishing everybody very happy Chaitra Navratri as we celebrate the new Hindu year, which is linked with creation. This day, Brahma had started the creation, and Ram Navami is coming when Bhagwan Ram's coronation was done. So, very important 10 days of bhakti and devotion to Devi Ma and Bhagwan Ram.
Yes. And of course, in connection with the Divine Mother. So, again, don't forget the homework question embedded earlier in the video: six transformations of the body, chapter two. Where do you find them? You can put them in the comments, add anything else you like. We shall see you next time, Saturday, 28th March 2026, 8 a.m. Central Time, 6:30 p.m. India time. Thank you so much. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.